Welcome to The Explainer. We're going to cut right through all the noise you've been hearing about AI and the job market. A new report gives us a really data-driven look at what's actually happening, not just what's theoretically possible. And look, for any leader trying to plan for the next few years, this is stuff you absolutely need to know. So, let's dive in. All right, so this is the bottom line question, isn't it? It's what every business leader is asking. Are we staring down the barrel of mass layoffs? Or is the story a little more complicated than that? Well, the data gives us a surprisingly clear and maybe even unexpected answer, at least for now. And here it is. The top line finding from the report is pretty definitive. Despite all the headlines, we are not yet seeing a systematic increase in unemployment for workers in jobs exposed to AI. That big displacement event we've all been warned about, it hasn't happened yet. So, if that's true, why is there so much confusion out there? Well, it all comes down to this massive gap between what AI could theoretically do and what companies are actually using it for in the real world. Honestly, if you're a strategist, this is probably the most important concept to get your head around. This visualization is just fascinating because it lays that gap bare. Look at it. The huge blue area shows all the things AI could potentially do in a field like computer and math. But then see that tiny little red area inside of it? That's the actual observed usage happening in the real world. It's just a tiny fraction of the potential. Let's just break that down a bit more. On one side, you've got this enormous potential of AI, but on the other, you have its practical and much more limited application. And you might ask, why is that? Well, it's because of all these real-world hurdles, right? Things like legal constraints, specific software requirements, or just the simple need for a human to verify the work. You know, this quote from the report just perfectly sums up where we are right now. That gap, the space between potential and reality, that's where all the strategic action is. For leaders, the real key to anticipating what's next is tracking how that little sliver of real-world usage grows over time. So, to get a clearer signal on all of this, the report introduces a new, much more precise way to measure AI risk. Instead of just looking at what's possible, it hones in on what is actually happening. And here's the crucial point. This idea of observed exposure cuts through all the hype and speculation. It's a data-driven lens that focuses only on automated AI use that's happening right now in a professional setting. You should think of it as a pragmatic, real-time tool for assessing risk. And this is how they build it. For a job to be rated as having high observed exposure, it has to pass through this 5-step filter. See, it's not enough for a task to just be theoretically possible with AI. No. It also has to be seeing significant, work-related, and this is key, automated usage that makes up a big chunk of someone's actual job. Okay, so what does this new tool actually reveal? Let's take a look at who is really most at risk right now based on this real-world data. The results are pretty clear. Right at the top of the list, you have roles like computer programmers, customer service reps, and data entry. These are the jobs where significant automated AI usage isn't a future tense thing, it's already a reality. Now, here's some really interesting validation for this new metric. It lines up almost perfectly with independent government forecasts. What this chart is showing us is that the occupations with higher observed exposure are the very same ones the Bureau of Labor Statistics already projects will have slower job growth. So you have two different data sets telling a very similar story. So who are the workers in these highly exposed roles? Well, the data paints a really clear demographic picture. The most exposed workers are more likely to be female, they are way more likely to have a bachelor's degree or higher, and they actually earn nearly 50% more per hour. But really, the report's most important finding isn't about layoffs at all. It's something much more subtle. It's a forward-looking indicator that every single leader should be watching very closely. It's an early warning signal. So first, let's just confirm again what we are not seeing. This chart shows the overall unemployment rates for high-exposure jobs, that's the red line, and no-exposure jobs, the blue line. As you can see, they've moved almost perfectly in sync. No divergence, no crisis. But this is the early warning signal. When we filter for just one specific group, young workers aged 22 to 25, a really clear divergence starts to appear in early 2024. See, the blue line, which is hiring in low-exposure jobs, it stays stable, but the red line, representing new jobs for young people in high-exposure roles, it starts to fall.
And here is the key number, a 14% drop in the job finding rate for people just entering the workforce in these AI-exposed fields. And what this suggests is that the first real impact of AI isn't mass layoffs. It's a quiet slowdown in hiring for the very entry-level roles that are easiest to automate.
So let's just quickly summarize the key takeaways for your strategy. First, the big wave of AI-driven unemployment has not arrived. Second, the crucial thing to watch is that gap between AI's potential and its actual deployment. Third, use a practical metric like observed exposure to track real-world risk. And finally, watch for that early signal. The first impact seems to be a hiring slowdown for new talent, not mass layoffs of your existing staff.
What this report gives us is a much better tool to measure what's actually happening. But it leaves us with the critical question for the future. Is this quiet slowdown in hiring for young workers just the first subtle tremor before a much larger economic earthquake? Well, that's what we'll all be watching.